Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you're having a wonderful day today. Today we're jumping into some malicious compliance. Our first story today comes to us from Mad Cat Scientist, but you told me not to fix it. Let's jump right in. This is my favorite malicious compliance or petty revenge that I've ever had the joy of being part of. About 10 years ago now, I was working for a small data center in my town. I originally started there as a tech support operator and did call center work helping various small companies over the phone with basic computer issues. I wasn't over the moon about it, but I also didn't hate it. However, when one of our major clients backed out of their contract due to budget cuts on their end, my company scrambled into a reorg and tried to keep as many employees as possible, hoping to win that client back. During that reorg, I got shifted over to physical security. I took over the role of two individuals while they did a lateral move. My new role had me running the daily ins and outs of the data center and its security while they were supposed to make improvements. Of course, I had never done this type of job before, but I took to it pretty quickly. It also didn't take me long to realize that one of the individuals that I replaced, Ted, wasn't quite up to snuff like I thought he was. Ted's biggest enemy was the cameras. He constantly struggled with them. He couldn't ever figure out why they weren't saving the footage the way he thought that they should be. He would bemoan about how he had a camera set up and working the way he wanted it to, only to have it stop saving the files properly a few weeks later. He also rarely let me help and take a look at the configurations of the cameras because I don't need to know how to adjust them, just how to watch them. One day though, he was struggling with the camera that a client was paying for. They wanted a camera on their servers to make sure that only their team worked on their servers. I always thought it was a bit of paranoia since each server rack had a lock and key and even security didn't have spares. But it made the client happy and the company was making money off of it, so whatever. Anyways, Ted was panicked because he couldn't get the cameras to save properly and he didn't know what to do. He eventually gave up and put a call into the camera manufacturer, Cisco, to try and get them to assist. In his frustration, he left the camera configuration open and I decided to take a crack at it. I mean, I have a technical background and camera systems aren't really all that different from any other program I have to troubleshoot on the spot. So I wrote down all the original configuration information and made sure I documented any changes I made. Eventually, I figured out why Ted couldn't grasp the camera issue. Ted never understood that all the cameras save all their data to a single server and the server was full. And looking at just this camera configuration, I could tell why. He had the camera recording and saving all its footage for 24 hours a day in HD. Plus, he wanted this to keep 90 days worth of footage. In case you don't know much about camera or video footage, that's a lot of storage space you'll need. That doesn't include all the other cameras that were probably also set to similar settings. But the software never errored out saying that it wouldn't be able to save that much to storage. It would just let you make all your changes and then at the bottom of the screen say something similar to estimated archiving max allowance 2 days. Meaning the server only had enough space to save 2 days worth of footage with that configuration. However, Ted must have never seen that or never knew what it meant. Realizing the issue, I proceeded to make the correct changes, setting the camera to record only on movement, turning it down off HD, and increasing the footage priority, meaning it wouldn't be the first to be overwritten if the server ran out of space again. After making the changes, the dialogue said something closer to estimated archiving max allowance 100 days. I smiled and quickly called Ted up to let him know what the issue was and how I fixed it. However, instead of a grateful Ted, I got, "Hey Ted, I fixed the camera issue. See, what's going on is..." "What camera issue?" "Oh, that client camera that you struggled with earlier? I think you said you couldn't get it to save for 90 days. "What? Why did you touch that? You're making us breach the contract." "But it's already broken. We are already breaching the contract." "No, I have a ticket in with Cisco. They will fix the issue. Put it back immediately." "Okay, but can I at least explain what I learned?" "No, just put the camera back to the original setting I had it at. Let the experts figure it out." "But I figured it out." "Just put it back and stop changing the configs. If I learn you're the reason we're having camera problems, I'll make sure Linda knows about it." Linda was my boss's boss. Okay, fine, I sighed and hung up, putting the camera back to its broken configuration. Of course, Cisco never called back, and Ted forgot about the issue, and now he was plagued with even more camera problems because the rest of the cameras weren't saving their footage either. For the next 2 weeks, whenever Ted walked into the security office and had a problem with the camera, I would try and explain the issue, only to be huffed away and asked to go stand in front of that camera so I can see if it will pick up your motion. In his eyes, he essentially demoted from physical security lead to motion detection officer. Eventually, I gave up, and amongst other various issues I had between him and management, I started to look for a new job. Now, it's my second to last day at work, and about 3 months since that day when I performed my malicious compliance. I have my replacement working at my desk, handling all the tasks that need to be done, and I'm just sitting in a corner reading a book. That's when Ted walks into the security office, his face is red and he's huffing angrily. He goes to the wall of monitors and pulls up that same camera and then clicks furiously around on the screen while getting angrier and angrier with each passing click. I decided to see what the issue was, and wouldn't you know it, he's fiddling around in the archive section. Uh-oh, that camera isn't saving any footage for more than an hour. I couldn't help but smile. I tried to cover it with my book, but Ted glanced up at the wrong time and started going off. What are you smiling about? Nothing, I can see you're busy. Unfortunately, I couldn't help but let out a sneer of pleasure. Ted jumps up and walks directly over to me, then proceeds to try and drill sergeant me. What are you laughing at? Now, here's the thing. I've never been in the military, but I have had the drill sergeant routine placed on me a million times in my life. I'm not scared by it anymore. Plus, I'm sitting down, so the effect isn't working properly. Thus, the laughter now spills out of me. That's the camera I had fixed for you, but you got all pissy about it and told me Cisco would fix it. Guess you didn't follow up on the ticket. Oh, so glad you think this is funny, but you don't have to go tell the client that we don't have any of their footage they are looking for. Nope, you're right, I don't. I spin around in my chair and then land one more tiny sucker punch. But I mean, if you're too scared to do it, I can. The worst the client can do is request I be fired, and whoops, what do you know, I've already done that for them. Ted huffs at me, draws his fist up ever so slightly, and then finally turns away, storming out of the office. The aftermath. The client never cared about the footage, they just let it drop. My replacement for my position, however, wasn't so easily cowed by Ted as I was. Also, my replacement had an in with someone much higher up the food chain than I did. Ted only lasted another 6 months at the company before someone finally realized that he wasn't up to par. You know, sometimes if you'll just sit and listen to somebody for even 5 to 10 seconds, you just might learn something. And that something that you learn might even help you save your job. Or, as mentioned in the comments, you could just slowly go through your pockets, look at the person and say, sorry, I've checked, and I just don't have any F's to give about your problem. Bye. Do me a quick favor, have a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're not actually subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. Our next story today comes to us from Perception95156. Don't eat out if you can't afford it. Okay, we won't. Let's jump right in. At the time, I had just moved from a small village in Europe. When I had moved to Canada, I met up with others from my tiny area in Europe. Being from the same little country, we all became close. I had become friendly with a next-door neighbor who was a waitress at a mid to high-level restaurant in this town. She told me I should stop by, and so I did. I brought my friends along, and it became a thing, where 9 to 12 of us would come in and eat and be served by her, at least once a week, every week, often 2 times a week. I asked if that was okay, but she never seemed overwhelmed, and we often caught her just chilling at the front desk when she was done with the initial plates. More on that later. Again, we are not from a tipping country, so I initially was going to tip 15%. Then, I was graciously informed by the host that an auto 18% tip was added to the bill for groups larger than 6. Okay, great, didn't have to figure out how much to tip. After almost 3 months or so of this, she stops by as I'm taking out the trash. One thing to know about her is that she seems nice, but also has no tact, and can have a bossy demeanor. She tells us she enjoys having us as customers and loves seeing us enjoy the food, but that we should be tipping 20% minimum. Heavy emphasis on the minimum. Also, good tippers would give at least 30%. I am a bit stunned that of all the things she'd talk about, it was that. So I simply say, I am sorry, okay. She finishes off with her signature sweet smile and the words, "Sorry, hun, if you can't afford to eat out, then you shouldn't be doing so." Now, if she was polite and said something like, "By the way, it's customary to tip this much if we do a good job. I understand you might not know the customs here," then I would have understood. But many times I remembered she was inattentive as a waitress. We'd often have to flag her down after making eye contact, where she'd just wait behind the counter. Like I said, 20% was not out of the question. It was the way she said it. So I mentioned this encounter to my friends, and after a little talk, we realize we can't afford that. Nah, not if we also want to be able to purchase other goods, such as fine wines, cheeses we love, and the like. See, we aren't poor, but not rich either. These weekly dinners were little luxuries that we splurged for the sake of friends and feeling special in a fancy restaurant. It didn't break our bank, but it was still a significant amount of money to tip her properly. And the fact that we all realized were other little things in life we'd rather spend our precious money on, we decided it was too much. Across all of us, it was hundreds in dollars in tips alone per week. That's a lot for us. We could use that money to rent a pool hall, fishing tours, which are very expensive, etc. So we did what any responsible adult did. We stopped buying what we couldn't afford. It was far cheaper to host our gatherings in someone's house and do a potluck or make a deli board, etc. Now discussing this with other neighbors, I hear that she has said something similar of that sort to other people in the neighborhood. Invite out to eat, then tell them off later if the tip is too low. They said she always said the same thing, 20% minimum, but service wasn't the best, very hurried, not very attentive, etc., and the entitlement. Anyways, we stopped eating at the restaurant and having her as the waitress. Mind you, I never stopped saying hi to her, kept up my pleasantries, etc. But now, after we all of a sudden stopped coming in, she had a scowl on her face when she'd see me, kept her responses quick, and stopped saying hi as much. And then, about a month after we stopped, one of the other neighbors mentioned to me how she was complaining that her tips weren't great anymore, and that she couldn't afford to get more fillers for her cheeks at the new medical spa down the road. Oh well, like you said, don't eat out if you can't afford it. I, for one, don't understand the whole tipping culture. I understand that it's something that we do in Canada and the USA, but I just don't understand why we can't pay them a living wage, and if it's exceptional service, then we give them a tip at the end. But if it's just regular ho-hum service, we don't have to give anything extra, because you're getting paid a normal wage. I don't know why we can't do that. That's how it is in a lot of the world. But this tipping percentage seems to be going up and up and up. Okay, 20%, sure. But if she said 20% at a minimum, what does she want? 30%? At 30%, you better give me a foot massage too. Our next story today comes to us from Taco Life Forever. If I see one pineapple on my pizza, I'm coming in personally to kick your butt. Let's jump right in. When I was in high school, my best friend and I worked at a pizza joint. We were drivers and would make pizzas between deliveries on slower days. One slow weekday evening, a bloke calls in and orders a pizza. He orders a specialty pizza that typically has pineapples and requests no pineapples are added. No problem, we get those requests all the time. But he takes it a step further. Last time, you guys put pineapples on it. I swear, if I see one pineapple on my pizza, I'm coming in to personally kick your butt. Whoa. I hang up, shocked at the unnecessary threat to a teenage boy, one who is about to handle his food, and tell my buddy about the call. Immediately, our wheels start turning and we devise a brilliant plan. We make his pizza exactly as he requested, but before tossing it in the oven, we each grab giant handfuls of pineapple and squeeze out all the juice we can onto his pizza. When we were finished, there was a standing pool of fluid across the entire pan. I cook it, box it, and have the pleasure of delivering it. When he answers the door, he repeats the threat he made on the phone. Sir, I personally made this pizza myself, and I can guarantee you will not find a single pineapple anywhere. Satisfied, he takes the box from me and I head back to the restaurant. Like a giddy squirrel girl waiting for her crush to call, I stared at the phone, willing it to ring. Finally, it does, and the caller ID confirms my hopeful anticipation. He has lost his mind, screaming about how he demanded no pineapple, but it's all he can taste. I calmly tell him I was the one who made it and delivered it, and reassured him I put no pineapple on the pizza. Sir, please take a picture of the pizza, because if a pineapple made it onto the pizza, we want to make it right. As I said before, I made it myself, and was extra mindful that no pineapple was added. He finished his profanity-laced tirade and slammed the phone down, still waiting for the butt-kicking he promised. Okay, so one of the comments down below this story was absolute gold. It's a 3-point list and it starts off with 1. Do not F with people who handle your food. 2. If you're going to F with people who handle your food, do it after they handle your food and only if you plan on never getting food from that place again. 3. Do not F with people who handle your food. Also, for anyone wondering, OP mentioned that the customer was not allergic to pineapple. They'd been a customer for a while and they knew this for a fact. Our next story today comes to us from Chicken Noodle Discharge. Need another doctor's note? No problem. Let's jump right in. My 23 male, mother 51 female, is a paralegal at a pretty big law firm. Each attorney has several paralegals under them, and one of them is the manager of the rest. If one paralegal is out, the manager takes up their work as well as their own. My mom had the same manager for several years and never once had any issues. This year, OG manager retired, and back in May, her new manager was brought in from another section. To say this new manager, we'll call her NM, was a B, would be an understatement. New manager immediately changed almost every single policy and micromanaged every single task. She constantly had sly remarks and would tattletale every single slip-up to the attorney. This got so bad, the attorney actually told the entire section he doesn't want to hear about any more workplace drama or small slip-ups at all. Now that the stage is set, on to the build-up. My mom found out she had a small tumor on her ovary that needed to be checked and removed. Biopsy was taken and found out it's not cancerous and can be removed with little to no issue. The doctor told her it would be a 1-day recovery. She went to new manager and asked for the 2 days off. No problem, just bring a doctor's note. My mom got the doctor's note and turned it in without issue. 3 days prior to the actual operation, they do her pre-op and find out that it can't be removed as easily, and she has to have a partial hysterectomy. Now her doctor says it's going to be about 2 weeks bed rest. Mom informs new manager. New manager is pissed and says she needs another doctor's note. No problem. My mom calls her doctor's office and they use a program to edit the existing one to say 2 weeks instead of 2 days. They fax it to my mom and she gives it to new manager. Now, the program medical facilities use to edit these types of documents is also used by paralegals. New manager sees this note and immediately accuses my mom of editing the document herself just to get more time off. She then demands to have the doctor's office number. My mom calls them and explains the situation. The nurse talks to new manager and agrees to get a new note made. Here is the malicious compliance. New manager demands my mom go in and get the original and not a faxed copy. New manager states, "We need the original since this whole situation has been shady. We are gonna do this by the books." My mom goes to the doctor's office, clearly pissed off. When she gets there, the nurse tells her she is entitled to 8 weeks of state short-term disability. She immediately fills out all the paperwork and takes it to her local disability office. Because of the short time frame, it's pushed through. The next day, she returns to work with her note for 2 weeks off and her 8 weeks disability paperwork. New manager is pissed. My mom just says, "You wanted this done by the book. This is what the book says I get." Now new manager has to do 10 weeks of extra work just because she gave my mom a hard time about doing 2 weeks of extra work. Since she has been back, new manager has given her no problem at all. It sounds like new manager was way up on top of that high horse, but your mom brought her down a peg, which is pretty cool. OP, I hope your mom had a quick recovery, and maybe it's time for her to start looking into becoming a lawyer. Our next story today comes to us from Chicken Noodle Discharge. What the f***? Check out all 4 OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.